So what I'm going to cover off is looking at the major bottlenecks on performance problems in Windows, and I'll show how to find where those bottlenecks are, and then how to fix the bottlenecks, both using Windows tools themselves, as well as using some free third-party tools that you can also use to approach those problems. The assumption is basically that you're going to be on the latest version of Windows 10 and 11, and I guess before very long, I'm going to have to change that to only Windows 11 as Windows 10 falls off of the support bandwagon from Microsoft. I am also assuming the latest version of the browser. No reason why you wouldn't be on the latest version of the browser for security reasons, if nothing else. You can always go onto any browser and do help about and look for some kind of indication saying that you're up to date or that the browser is being updated. So if you follow the instructions that I'm going to show tonight, it's going to affect your computer. Potentially you could actually be removing programs from your computer. You could be removing data files, definitely changing behaviors on your computer, and hopefully all in the aim of improving performance. I do have to put in a little bit of a caveat here that neither I nor the Ottawa Peace Users Group accept responsibility for a negative outcome. They're pretty safe, everything that I'm talking about tonight, but anytime that you do make changes to your computer, there's always a possibility that something is going to go wrong, and it's always a good idea to make sure that you have a good image backup of your computer so that you can recover from any sort of problem, whether it's a wayward finger as you're trying to do a tune-up feature, or you have a virus or accidental deletion of a file or hardware failure or whatever. So I always recommend that you do have backups before you start playing around with Windows. So let's have some fun trying to improve the performance on your computer. So there are some universal tune-up options that might cost you a little bit of money or maybe a fair amount of money, but they may have really, really big bang for the buck. If you have less than about 8 gigabytes of RAM, and even 8 gigabytes of RAM nowadays is really a bare minimum. And if you have less than 8 gigabytes, you're definitely going to have a lot of performance issues on a Windows computer. And you could get a really good performance boost with more memory. And that doesn't have to be all that expensive. You can get 16 gigabytes of RAM now for, well, in Canadian dollars, that's you can get it for under $100 easily. So that's what, about $5 American or something like that. Faster storage. In some circumstances, or in most circumstances, if you move from a slow hard drive to a faster hard drive, or even more so, if you move from a hard drive, spinning hard drive, to a solid state drive, you'll end up with a really big performance boost to your computer. And that can be done for a relatively small amount of money as well. A faster video card can come into play if, and only if really, you're first-person shoot 'em up gamer. This is not playing solitaire or things like that on your computer. This is the shoot 'em up games that the youngins tend to play, or you're into video editing or advanced photo editors. You may get a good performance boost out of going to a faster video card. Other than that, you're probably not going to realize a great performance boost by going to a fast video card. And then finally, it comes down to new computer. So if you go through all of the tips and techniques that I'm going to show you tonight, and you may have a boost of some description on your computer, but it doesn't come up to the level that you're really looking for. If you have a computer that is 8 years old or something like that, you're probably not going to be able to get the performance you really are looking for. And sometimes you just have to buy a new computer to get the faster performance. Some people talk about reinstalling Windows as a way of getting performance back, and this is really an old school solution. Really goes back to Windows XP sort of days. Everything since about Windows 7, you're not likely to see a good performance boost by reinstalling Windows. There may be some that comes from removing some of the programs that you've installed on Windows, more so than speeding up Windows itself. If you want to reinstall anyways, make sure you have a backup of all your data. And this includes more than just documents, pictures, videos, desktop, things like that, some of the programs you may have installed on your computer tend to squirrel away data in some pretty non-obvious places. So making sure you have all your data backed up, and then also making sure that you have the installation files to reinstall all your software, as well as the license keys that go along with that before you decide to reinstall Windows. There are two ways that you can do a reinstall of Windows, or two main ways of doing it. Reset This PC will use the image file that your manufacturer laid down on the drive before you bought it to reinstall Windows. One of the things as a benefit with that is if they had any special drivers that boosted the performance or things like that, it should keep all of those special drivers. Under Windows 11, you go Settings, System, Recovery, and Reset This PC. Under Windows 10, it's Settings, Update, and Security, Recovery, Reset This PC. Another way that you can do it is called Fresh Start. And that does a clean install of Windows from a download from Microsoft. So it will download all of Windows from Microsoft and then install from that. It will not restore any of the special drivers from the manufacturer because it is the vanilla version of Windows from Microsoft. One of the benefits, I guess, is that you're not getting all of the crapware that most manufacturers also install along with the copy of Windows. To do that, you go under Windows Security, Device Performance and Health, and Fresh Start. There's going to be a third one. Right now it's in testing with the beta people at Microsoft, and that will be using Windows Update as a means of doing a reinstall of Windows as well. So that's probably going to come to the mainstream within a couple of months. If you are going to look at upgrading your hardware, in particular going either you're adding memory or you want to add a solid-state drive or switch to a solid-state drive, you want to know if your computer can really take it or not. One of the neat sites out there is from Crucial. Now they sell memory and solid-state drives. They have a really neat tool that will report on your system about how much memory it can take, how much memory is currently installed, how many free memory slots you have, and then they will also make recommendations on solid-state drives and so forth. But you could go to their site and you just tell it you want to do a free scan, and then it'll come up and it'll take a look at your computer. And in this case here, we can see that I have maximum memory is 16 gigabytes on this particular computer that I ran the scan on, and it has 2 slots, both of which are filled with 8 gigabytes. So this particular computer, I could not upgrade the memory. I'm already at 16 gigabytes. That is the maximum memory for this particular system. So I can just immediately discount the idea of upgrading RAM to get better performance. They'll have suggested upgrades for the memory as well as for solid-state drives and so forth. You can buy it from Crucial if you want, but you don't have to. You can go down to any computer store, and if you were upgrading memory and they said, okay, say I only had 8 gigabytes, so there's one free slot. So I could go to the computer store, say, I would like DDR4, PC4, 21300, 16, 17, 17, unbuffered, non-ECC, DDR4 memory, and they will get you compatible memory. So you don't have to buy it from Crucial. Nothing to say it's wrong buying it from them, but you can get it from anywhere. But they give you that nice specification for it that you can say what it is you want. Okay, let's start looking into the actual performance problems that we're going to see in Windows and how we deal with them. So we're going to look at 4 metrics: the CPU activity, disk activity, memory usage, internet connectivity, and then we'll go into a whole bunch of other things about web browsers, because we spend so much time in the web browsers that tuning them up can really help the performance of the computer. We'll look at malware very briefly, what effects it can have, disk clutter, and how you can deal with that. Auto starting of programs on your computer, which if you stop auto starting programs, you will have a performance boost of some description on there. We'll talk about drivers. Drivers are pieces of software that talk to hardware. And then we'll talk about disk indexing and crapware that is installed on your computer. So the main 2 tools that we're going to look at to see if there are performance bottlenecks on your computer are Task Manager and Resource Monitor. And Task Manager is built into Windows, and it allows you to measure the metrics of the performance for processes, the load on the CPU, the amount of memory that's in use, the disk activity that's going on, the network utilization, and the GPU. We're not going to talk about the GPU later on in this presentation. It's not really all that relevant for most people. And then Resource Monitor will allow us to dig in a little bit deeper. In particular, what we're going to be interested in there is disk activity, and it'll show a little bit more detail than you can get from Task Manager. Let's look at CPU hogs. So the problem with a CPU hog, and I call them hogs, just there's something that is bottlenecking the computer. It's taking over and it's preventing other processes from getting their fair share, so to speak. So the problem is the program can demand lots of processor time, and if it does, then other programs are going to get less processing time, and they're going to slow down, and overall, your computer is going to have a slowdown. So what's the solution? You can track down those programs that are using too much CPU, kill them, maybe, or you can only run those processor-intensive programs when you're not concerned about running other programs. So let's take a look at Task Manager, if I can find it here. There we go. So this is Task Manager, and this is in Windows 11. And you can see down the left-hand side, we have the two main ones we're going to be looking at is processes, performance. We'll be looking a little bit later on the startup apps. But mostly we're going to be going on for processes and performance when we're looking at bottlenecks. On Windows 10, those tabs go across the top as opposed to going down the side. And then you have details about things in the right-hand pane. So for us to look at, do we have a performance problem? What we're going to do is look at the performance tab, and then in this case, we're looking at CPU. So we're looking at here, and I can tell you tonight, because I have a fairly powerful computer, and it's not doing an awful lot of work right now, we're not going to see performance bottlenecks on it. So I'll have to describe what you might want to look for. So right here, we have a chart that is showing the CPU utilization, and you can see it's very low. If this was up at 80%, 90%, 100%, then I would start to be concerned that there's bottlenecking going on. Okay, so once I determine that yes, there is a bottleneck going on, so say this chart, rather than being down around the 15, 20%, it's instead up 85, 90, 95%. I've determined at that point that I do have a bottleneck going on or a performance issue. Then I would go over to the Processes tab, click on that, and then you have those four metrics that we're talking about: CPU, memory, disk, and network going across the top. In this case, we're looking at CPU. So we're going to be looking at this column going down here. Oh, yeah, my cursor highlighter won't work on top of some of the system utilities. So I'll just point with my cursor. So I can sort by this column by just clicking on it. And if I click on it a second time, it reverses the sort. So right now I'm sorting by low to high. So I want to click again to get high to low. And then I would look at what are the processes that are running on my computer that are using the most CPU. In this case is Zoom meetings. I'm obviously not going to want to kill that right now. If I was to see, for example, that it was my photo editor, and I was not photo editing at the time. It was just I left it running, but for some reason there's some kind of process running in the background and it's using up a lot of the CPU. Then I could stop that particular process from running on my computer. So the best way to kill a process is actually go to the X in the top right hand corner and click it, which will actually close that process politely. Another way that you can close things impolitely is if you right click on it in the task manager, you can click on end task. Now the reason why I don't recommend that is if, for example, it's Microsoft Word that is all of a sudden using all kinds of CPU and you kill it by that means, if you have an unchanged document, it will unceremoniously just kill the process, you'll lose your document. So closing it politely will give you the standard dialog box that says, do you want to save your file? Okay, so what I can do then is I can go into any of those processes that are using up an awful lot of CPU, and I can decide, do I want to kill them or not? And this is where you have to make an intelligent choice on your own. Can you stop using that program at that particular point in time? Or do you need that program to be running, and then you just have to put up with the performance problem? So here's what we just went through. So going on to Task Manager, Performance, clicking on the CPU, and then looking at utilization. Again, well, like on my computer, it's running 10 to 15%, no big deal. But if it's really running high, then you can go into the Processes tab, CPU column, sort by utilization. So there's where I talked about you can end the task there, or you can just end the task politely if you have a window you can close. Uninstall programs that you don't need. So if you have programs that are running in the background that are using CPU and you don't need them, why not uninstall them? And then in the future, they won't cause you that problem. Another thing you can do if you have to track down processes, like if, for example, let me just see, if I look at UDC service and I say, I don't know what the heck that UDC service is. What you can do is go anywhere where the headers are. You can right click on and you can add in things like process name, command line, publisher. Any of those will give you a column where you can then see who actually wrote that program, where it's installed, and things like that. Like UDC service, it's Lenovo. Okay, I have a Lenovo computer, so it makes sense that, okay, that came with my computer. It may or may not be critical for the operation, but it might help me track down those programs. Then that'll help me decide whether I want to stop using those particular programs or not. Disk activity hogs. Now I'll say right now, I'm going to start to sound like a broken record. So the problem is if you have a program that is using an awful lot of disk activity, it can slow down your computer overall. Disk operations are among the slowest functions that exist on a computer, even with a solid-state drive, but especially with spinning hard drive. So again, solution, you can stop running those programs or only run them when you're not concerned about running other programs. An example of that might be if you want to run a virus scan on your entire computer. You don't necessarily have to run that while you're trying to do other things on your computer. Maybe you can run it at 1 o'clock in the morning and you don't care if it slows down the entire computer. Or in this case, you might, if you're using a hard disk, especially as your main Windows drive, normally C, if you change that to a solid state drive, you won't really get rid of the problem of programs writing to or reading a lot from the disk, but it masks the problem because it happens so much quicker. So let's go on to Task Manager and take a look at that. So we go back to the Performance tab, and in this case, we look at, I've got a number of disks here. So I would look at probably if there's a performance problem, it's probably on disk C, okay, where Windows is installed. Now I can see here that my disk activity line is like really, really low, so I don't have a bottleneck there. But if my disk activity was running up 80, 90%, things like that, then I might say, okay, maybe I've got a problem with some program that is taking over the disk and preventing other applications from being able to use it. So then I would go to the Processes tab, and then I would click on disk to sort by disk, and then I would look for the programs that are reading or writing from the disk really heavily. And then again, decide, do I want to run those at another time? Do I no longer need that program and I can actually just uninstall it from my computer? Or however I decide that I want to actually deal with it. Now, Resource Monitor allows you to dig a little bit deeper into that. If you look at under Task Manager, you just have a megabytes that activity that is going on. If you really want to dig into it a little bit deeper, what we can actually do is go to Resource Monitor, and this allows you to actually see the actual files that are being read from or written to, and you can break it out. You can say, I want to sort by reads, or I want to sort by writes, or total, which is reads and writes combined. And then you can see the actual files that are being accessed, either writing or reading. And that might help you again to track down where the actual problems are and what you want to do about it. So again, what can you do? Uninstall programs that you don't need. Say you have a program that is changing a wallpaper, every 2 minutes. Well, maybe it's writing big files and reading from big files on your disk. If you don't need that, get rid of that program. Only run them when you're not concerned about other programs running. Again, something like a virus scan, or install a solid-state drive to get the better performance. There is one special case that comes to disk activity. If you have a lot of disk activity and low memory, they can sort of combine to cause a problem. So the problem really comes from the Windows Memory Manager. it swaps out programs to disk to make room for other programs. And this allows it to run more programs at one point in time than you necessarily have the memory to run them all at the same time. So what it will do is it will swap out usually the least recently used program to disk, its current state, and then free up the memory for a new program, and then you run that other program. When you try to access that other program that's been swapped out to disk, Windows will automatically swap out something else to disk, swap that program back into memory, and allow you to interact with it. Well, it's a very time-consuming activity, and so if you have very high memory utilization and you have a loss of disk activity, it can be the computer is actually swapping these programs in and out of memory constantly, and that can have a really huge impact on performance. So the solutions for that really are to add physical memory to the computer so that it doesn't have to swap out programs as often, or don't run as many programs simultaneously so that Windows doesn't try to keep them all ready and available for you just by swapping things in and out. Memory hogs, some programs just use a lot of memory. Browsers with a lot of tabs open can use up an awful lot of memory. I find that a lot of tabs, when I'm browsing, they'll use up 150 megabytes each. And so if you have 20 tabs open, you can all of a sudden say goodbye to about 2 gigabytes of available memory. There's a possibility that a program might have a memory leak. When a program gets loaded into memory, Windows doesn't just decide, oh, okay, I'll give you half a gig of memory or 1 gig of memory or whatever. The program requests a certain amount of memory, and basically Windows will say sure, and it'll provide as much memory as is asked for if it's possible to do so. If you have a program that just keeps asking for more and more memory, Windows will keep happily serving it up to that program. And I've seen some programs that over time, they will use more and more memory. And by stopping that program and restarting it, it'll freshen it up and it'll start at a low number again. Most programs don't really have memory leaks like that. But if you do have a program that is constantly growing in the amount of memory that it's using, then try just stopping and starting it again. It might buy you some time. Or you can look for a program that doesn't have memory leak that fulfills the same requirements for you. So you can find a program that uses less memory, restart the program, don't run as many programs simultaneously, or add physical memory. So let's go back into Task Manager. And in this case here, we go back again. I'm sounding like a broken record, performance. And in this case here, we're going to go to performance on memory. And you can see I have 32 gigs of RAM, and it's about half in use. Now, don't be scared by half in use. Windows will automatically use a lot of memory itself if it's available for things like caching and so forth to improve the overall performance of your computer. But it will happily give up that memory if enough programs are loaded that they require additional memory to be allocated. It'll give up some of that caching memory and so forth and allow it to be used by your programs. But if you have a memory usage is up around 90% or above, then you probably have a bottleneck on memory. At that point, again, we go back to the Processes tab, we click on the Memory tab, and we can see the programs that are using the most amount of memory. So in this case here, I have Google Chrome open with 30 processes, so I probably have about 20 tabs open, and then there's other processes within Google Chrome using some, but it's using up 2 gigabytes of RAM. So that's an awful lot. If I don't need Google Chrome running, and I'm running into a performance bottleneck on memory, then maybe I want to stop using Chrome while I use that other program. Or maybe I just want to close down some of the tabs to free up memory, or whatever I have to do. So again, that's the process we go through with Task Manager to figure out, do we have a bottleneck? And then what is causing that particular bottleneck? Internet connectivity is usually not such a big deal, but I include it because it's one of the 4 metrics that Microsoft Windows provides for you. The problem really comes down to if you have a program that is using a lot of your bandwidth, then it could slow down other programs that are requiring bandwidth. So the solution, stop running those programs or only run them when you're not concerned about other internet activity. So if you're trying to stream a movie, maybe you don't want other internet activity going on that is going to affect your ability to watch that video stream. Closing unneeded tabs in the browser can also help there because background tabs in the browser can be periodically trying to access the internet. This is one where we can actually use Task Manager or Resource Monitor. So let's go into Resource Monitor. And one of the nice things about this is, let me just collapse down disk, and I'm going to expand out network. And you can actually see the endpoints that are being accessed. So I'm going out to, in this case, one process is going out to VulnDetect. That's a security software I have that does vulnerability management. So it is using up some bandwidth, not a lot, very little in fact. I can see up here that right now, unsurprisingly, Zoom is using up most of the internet bandwidth that I have in use. So network monitoring is quite nice being done through Resource Monitor. You can get some details on it within Task Manager as well. You just click on the Task Manager Network tab, and you can see the overall utilization by program. Okay, let's move on from the 4 metrics that Windows provides for you, and we'll look at other things that you can look at. So web browsers can be a real problem in a Windows installation. So if you have a badly written web browser extension, then it can actually impact the performance. And it can be anything. It could be memory, it could be CPU, it could be internet activity, it could be reading and writing from disk. Okay. Even if you have well-written extensions, if you have a lot of extensions in place, then it can impact the performance on your computer as well. So the solution would be to disable or remove the extensions that are causing a problem. So how do you take a look at what extensions you actually have? In Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, you can go to the meatball or the kebab icon. Meatball menu is 3 horizontal dots. Kebab menu is 3 vertical dots. Select extensions, manage extensions, and then you can select an extension and you can turn it off or you can remove it. So you could turn it off by just clicking on the slider and then see if your problem goes away. And then if it does go away, you decide maybe I really don't need that extension, and then you could actually remove it so it doesn't accidentally get turned on. Mozilla Firefox, a little bit of a different way of getting about it. I'm just going to flip through these menus very quickly. You can refer to them if you have to afterwards by looking at the PDF file on how to find it in your particular browser. Also, these things tend to date a little bit. So next week, they may move the menu options around, so you might have to hunt for them in whatever browser you're using. Web browser caches are interesting. They can clutter up your disk with gigabytes of files. And if your drive gets too cluttered, especially on a hard disk drive, as opposed to solid state drive, it could slow down your computer. So empty your cache is one way to do it. And I'll show you an easier way later on where you can empty the cache of all browsers you have installed in one fell swoop. You can also try setting the cache to a reasonable maximum size if you can. I'll talk briefly about that. The idea of web caching came about in the days of dial-up when we had very slow internet access. And they quickly decided that if you go back to the same website time and time again, and none of the content changes, why download all of that new content every time you go to the web page? Instead, they cache those pages onto your local hard drive, and then they will read that cached file rather than going out and getting it brand new. Now, these days, most of us are on relatively high-speed internet access, so in actual fact, it can end up in some circumstances where it's actually faster to download the content new than it is to actually read it from the cache on the local drive, depending on your speed. So that's the idea behind caching. So how do you set the cache size to a more reasonable maximum size rather than what the web browser is going to impose as cache size? So in Microsoft Edge, to clear the cache, you go into settings, privacy and services, clear browsing data. What I want to really point out here is be very careful about what you clear, because you probably don't want to clear all of this. In particular, cookies and other site data, you may want to leave that data on there. Download history so that you can see a link and see it in a different color so that you know what you've already downloaded. Browsing history, do you really care about wiping out your browsing history? This is the important one from a performance point of view. Cached images and files. And you can see here it says that if I clear that, it'll free up 320 megabytes. And it says some sites may load more slowly because they do have to re-download that page the next time you visit it. But that's how you would do that, is just select the one for cached images and files, and then that will free up disk space. You can't set the maximum cache size in Microsoft Edge. Microsoft has decided that based on the amount of memory you have, the size of your disk, the free space on your disk, they have some magic formula that they will apply that they will set the maximum cache size. You can't influence it. Google Chrome cache, you can clear it, but you can't set the maximum cache size. There is actually a way that you can do it, but it requires some special finagling on it. If you really want to set the maximum cache size for it, Google and it'll tell you how you can actually set that maximum cache size. But basically the same thing, when you get to that clearing browsing data, make sure you only select cached images and files. Firefox, you can go in and basically do the same thing. And in Firefox, you can actually set the maximum cache size. So you go to the address bar, type in about.config, and then you search on browser.cache.disk.capacity, and then you double click the box and click the edit icon, the pencil, and it'll come up with what the cache size is. In this case here, it's 256,000, which represents 256 megabytes. So if I wanted to set it to say 60 megabytes, I would put in 60,000, and then that would limit the cache size to that. What's the magic number? There is no real magic number. I think most people probably don't need more than a cache size of about 50 or 60 megabytes, quite frankly. But you can play with it and see if it seems to affect your browsing too much, that it's downloading too much, it's slow loading on pages because it has to reload the source files, then you could up the number to something a little bit higher. Web browsers have a task manager that is actually built into them, which is kind of cool. Because if I go back to Task Manager and I look at Google Chrome, and I can see that I have 28 processes running in underneath Google Chrome. I'm just going to click on sort by name just so that it stops jumping around. And I can look in there and I can see them all just called Google Chrome. A lot of those are extensions. A lot of them are tabs. What are they? Can I kill an individual one? I don't know from there. But if I instead look at the task manager within Google Chrome, which I can access within Chrome by holding down Shift and hitting Escape, and then I can actually see the breakdown of all of those different processes, and I can see things like I have an app running in the browser. In this case, it's the Gmail app form, and it is using 618 megabytes of memory. Right now it's using no CPU and no network. I can see here I have an extension, uBlock Origin, that's using 64 megabytes of memory. So this allows me to track down those things that maybe I either want to close a particular tab because I don't need it anymore, or at this particular time, or it's an extension that's using up huge amounts of memory. Maybe I want to turn off that extension or uninstall it completely, whatever I want to actually do. Here's a tab that I have open that is using 250 megabytes of memory. So again, this allows you to track down those processes that are causing bottlenecks, and then you decide what you want to do about it. Okay, let's look at some other performance impacts on computers. So malware problem, of course. Malware can impact performance of your computer. Can do much more, of course, but we're just looking at the performance impacts. So the solution is to get rid of it. So make sure you are running antivirus, and I'm not religious about any particular antivirus. Pick one, anyone, keep it up to date. Anti-spyware, ideally. You want to have on-access anti-spyware where it's looking for things coming onto your computer or trying to come onto your computer and stopping them before they can install on your computer. If you have anti-spyware that is a cost item for on-access and you can get for free where it runs on demand, at least do the on-demand periodically, maybe once a week or once every couple of weeks. You could run it on demand to see if anything has gotten onto your computer that you can get rid of after the fact. Vulnerability management software will allow you to track programs that are installed on your computer and allow you to see if there's a more recent version that is fixing a security vulnerability on your computer, and you can patch that software. Make sure you always have a firewall that is blocking uninitiated connections that are coming in from the internet to your computer. I do give a 2-hour presentation strictly on protecting your PC. So if you want me back sometime, I can go into an awful lot more detail about malware and how to protect your PC. You can get free on-access antivirus software, Microsoft Defender, built into Windows 10 and 11. Most people find that perfectly adequate. I use that on most of my computers is what I use for my antivirus. There are other ones, as you see on the slide here, all very well respected antivirus. They will nag you to some extent to buy their paid version, and they'll tell you the wonderful extra things that they can do for you if you buy their paid version. But the basic antivirus is available for free. Free on-demand antivirus is available as well. And this can be really neat if you want to double check the antivirus you've got installed on your computer to see if it's missing something. So you can go to any or all of these, run a virus scan, and you can see if it picks up something that your antivirus missed. Why do they give this away for free? They're hoping that they'll find something that your antivirus missed and you go, oh, wow, maybe I should switch to this company. I don't advise necessarily that you switch to a different antivirus company just because they find something that your antivirus missed. It's a mug's game to chase antivirus to try to find the latest, greatest program that is going to do the best on your computer. They are all good. They will all miss some things sometime. You can get free adware and spyware resources, so built into Microsoft Defender, as well as there are other ones. Malwarebytes seems to be the darling on the internet now for its ability to get rid of, in particular, spyware. But there's a lot of other ones, all very well respected, been around for a long time. For vulnerability management, anything from Microsoft Windows Update should take care of it. I do recommend that people periodically go into settings, Windows Update, check for updates to make sure that the Windows Update process is actually working correctly. You don't want to have it that it's been failing for a couple of months and you didn't realize it. So if you go check for updates, you will know very quickly whether it's having a problem or whether it just comes back and says, yeah, everything is good to go. For all the other software that's installed on your computer, there are things like Larrysoft Software Update, Patch My PC Home Updater, and Secdir Vulndetect. The first two are actually update managers as opposed to vulnerability managers. Secdir Vulndetect is the only free vulnerability detector that I know of right now, specifically looks for vulnerabilities for which a patch is available so that you can keep your software up to date. Free firewalls, if all you want is inbound protection, Windows 10 or 11, the firewall built in there is all you need. If you want two-way firewall, there are a number of two-way firewalls that are available as well. They can be useful for checking in case you somehow do get malware on your computer, because the first thing most malware tries to do is go out to the internet and contact a command and control server to say, what should I do next? Should I deliver spam to the world, or should I attack other computers, or whatever? And so if you happen to get it on, a two-way firewall can actually block those outbound connections as well. The Windows 10 and 11 firewall is really just an inbound only protection. It will allow outbound traffic without any checking at all. Let's talk about disk clutter. So the problem is if the disk fills up too much, performance can suffer. And the solution is to get rid of that clutter. So there is a couple of tools that are built into Windows. So storage, you can go in, you can drill down on the storage on each of your drives, and you go to settings, system storage, and there will be a number of entries, and you can double click the entry and get details on what is the volume of files, or what are the exact files that are in that particular category, and you can decide how you want to deal with those files. Either they're inconsequentially small, or if they're taking up a lot of space, maybe you want to move them to another disk, or delete them if you no longer need them, or anything like that. There are a number of interesting categories in there that you might want to look at. Other is just everything that is not in the named categories above that. So it's always worth looking into that if it's got big numbers on it. System and reserved, I never even look at that. Don't touch anything that's in there. Generally speaking, you cannot do anything about any of the disk space that is being used by system and reserved. Just leave it be. Other people is useful if you have profiles for other accounts on your computer. For example, my brother came over from England visiting, and so I gave him his own account on my computer, and I said, do whatever you want. And then when he leaves, I can just delete his account, and then it'll delete all of the files associated with his profile as well. But you can go in and you can see in the storage section what other people's accounts, how much disk space they're actually using up on your computer, and you can decide if there are really big accounts, you can decide if you want to get rid of those accounts. There's a cleanup now under storage, which allows you to delete temporary files not being used at that time by other programs, empty the recycle bin for files that have been there for over a specified period, and delete files from your download folder that haven't been accessed in a specific time. So that can be very useful for a lot of the big cleanup because recycle bin and downloads and temporary files can actually chew up an awful lot of space. There is an automation available under storage called Storage Sense. And what you can do is set it up so that it will actually go in and it will take those parameters of deleting files that are temporary files that are not being used at the point in time, your download folder, as well as the recycle bin, and you can say you want this to actually run automatically either on a schedule or when it's needed for if you're running low on disk space. So that can be very useful. You can turn off some of the parameters if you don't want them to run. For example, I use my download directory as basically a permanent storage space. And so I don't want anything deleted out of there except when I want to go in and say, okay, I know I don't need this particular download anymore, and I'll get rid of it manually. So I just unselect that, but I can let it do the cleanup on things like the recycle bin and temporary files. There's an older style tool, which is kind of useful. It's a disk cleanup tool. And so it's been around for many, many versions of Windows. And when you run it, it'll come up and ask you what disk you want to analyze and clean up. And it'll default to the Windows disk. And you just click on enter and it'll load up. The first thing that you want to do is click on this button, clean up system files. And then it will close disk cleanup and it'll reload disk cleanup, and it'll give you additional categories of things that can be cleaned up. And a couple of the big ones that'll come in, well, the biggest one that I've seen is that previous Windows installations and Windows Update cleanup will be added to the list of possible things that you can clean up on there. So some of the big cleanup things that can be done, for sure, previous Windows installations. If you do a major update to Windows, the old version of Windows will be available for at least a couple of weeks, where you can revert to that if you need to. So it's using up a lot of disk space in the meantime. You can clean that up by using disk cleanup. Windows Update cleanup, I've seen some computers that have 10 or 12 gigabytes of files that are being used by Windows Update cleanup. Windows Update, every time you run it, any file that gets replaced, it will keep the old version of that file in case you want to uninstall the update. And so those updates can stick around for a long period of time. And by going in here, you can clean up quite often gigabytes worth of files. Windows Upgrade log files, I've never found any particular use for them. You can clean up things like temporary files and recycle bin from here, as well as using the previous tools that I talked about. Auto starting of programs, that can be a performance impact as well. A lot of programs that you install on your computer, they may decide to install so that they start up every time your computer starts up so that it loads quicker, or you can interact with it without having to go and manually start the program. Problem with that is that it is going to be using some memory. It is going to impact the performance of the startup of your computer, and potentially it could be ongoing performance on your computer because it could be using up CPU cycles and so forth as you're using your computer. So the solution would be to stop those programs from auto starting. So here we are back in Task Manager, and this is the third tab that I wanted to talk about, and that's Startup Apps. So if you go on there and you see any app that is in that list that you say, I do not always need that running on my computer, you can right click on it, and then you can choose the option for Disable. If you decide later on that you really do want that to be running all the time, just come back into there, right click, and this will be Enable, and you just click on it, and the next time you restart Windows, it will be started up with Windows itself. So if you see anything on there that you really don't need to have running all the time, why not disable it? Out-of-date drivers. So drivers are pieces of software that talk to hardware. So we have a driver for the keyboard, mouse, printer, the screen, your webcam, your speakers, all the hardware devices. They all have their own driver. And it can have a big impact on performance, but really, it really comes down to video drivers. Other drivers, I never seen really big impact on performance on the computer, but video drivers can. NVIDIA comes out with updated drivers about once a month, and often it will impact performance on your computer to get up to the latest version of the video driver. So keeping your drivers updated is a good idea. And as I say, I only concentrate on video drivers. I don't really care that much on other drivers on my computer. So how do you find out what you're using currently? So your vendor might have some information on what drivers are the latest versions available. So you can go to Device Manager. So if you right click on the Start button and choose Device Manager from the pop-up list, you can double click on any particular entry, and then you will see what it is that is actually being used. And sorry, I didn't highlight the real right thing on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up Device Manager. So here we have device managers. So as I said, display adapters, that's really what I care about. Double click on it, it'll show you the information. And if you go to the driver tab, it'll actually have the driver version 32.0.15.7283. Then I would go to NVIDIA. I would say, I want to know what is the latest driver for, in this case, NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3070 Ti. And then if it comes up and says that the latest version is 34.1 point something, then I know that there's a more recent version of the driver available, and I could get a performance boost. I might also get security updates as well, might come out of that. So it's always a good idea to keep things like that up to date. Disk indexing, this is a problem of disk space. It's not an impact on performance of your computer, but because disk space, if it's low, that can impact the performance of your computer. So the reason why it doesn't have a significant impact on performance is the disk indexing itself is done as a low-level priority task. And so if it's running, indexing your files at any particular point in time, and just about any other process on your computer wants CPU, then Windows will happily just defer to that, and disk indexing will be paused until such time as your computer is idle again. So it really comes down to space that is actually being used by the index itself. If you don't want to be able to search on the contents of files, you can always search on file names and folder names and things like that. But if you don't want to be able to search on the contents of files, then you might want to disable that disk indexing to save that disk space. So how do you do it? Well, first off, you have to stop the service that is being run. So you right-click on the Start button and go to Computer Management. You expand Services and Applications and then go into Services, and you look for Windows Search. You double-click on it to bring up its dialog box. Click Stop. That'll stop the service from running, and then set its startup type to disabled so that it doesn't start the next time you start up Windows. Once you have stopped the service, then you can delete the index. So in that case, you go to Settings, and then in the Search dialog box, type in Windows Search Settings, and then it'll bring up another dialog box. Go to Advanced Index Settings, Advanced button, and choose the option Delete and Rebuild Index. It'll delete it, but it can't rebuild it because you've disabled the service. So it'll delete the index, it can't rebuild it, and you'll regain that disk space. Crapware. Problem is many computer vendors add a lot of performance sucking programs onto your computer that are running on your computer when you don't necessarily need them at all. Solution, uninstall any of the ones you don't need. The best time to do this is when you get a brand new computer, go into the list of installed apps, and any of the ones that you don't want, get rid of them right off the bat. You can do it later, but it's just that it's a little easier to pick out the ones you don't want when you don't have all your programs that you've added into the list. There are some free advanced utilities that you can download for free. Mark Russinovich, who's the VP of Microsoft in charge of Azure, their online services, he was the first guy to reverse engineer the NTFS file system. And very, very bright guy, and he has a whole bunch of utilities that you can download for free from Microsoft, and they're under the name sysinternals. So auto runs will allow you to find more programs than show up in Task Manager auto start tab. There's all kinds of programs that can load from various ways on your computer, and this will allow you to find all of them and toggle them off and then leave the entry there so you can toggle them back on if you decide you want them back later on. Process Monitor allows you to show real-time file system access, registry accesses, and processes that are running on your computer. So it can really, really dig into details about the things that are running on your computer. Process Explorer displays all the processes running with the CPU and memory usage for each one of them. Again, helps you track down those programs that are using an awful lot of CPU or a lot of memory. TCP View allows you to see real-time network connections, but the next one down, Nearsoft Utilities, has a program that's a little bit better, I find, than TCP View, called CurPorts, and it monitors network connections. And Nearsoft also has an awful lot of extra utilities for free. You can download from their website that can do a lot of interesting things. Xmeters is a really neat one from Entropy 6. It only runs on Windows 10, so I've asked if they will ever build one for Windows 11, and I've never gotten a response from their email. So I think they're just going to ignore me forever, and I think because they've ignored me, they are not planning on writing anything for Windows 11. But if you are on Windows 10, it can be really neat. What it will do is on your taskbar, it'll give you these 4 main metrics that you get in Task Manager, but they are always visible because they're on your taskbar. So you can have the CPU, storage, so reading and writing from disk, network activity, and the amount of memory that's in use. And I just brought these up as different types of charts, and that you can have any one of them, a pie chart or a number or whatever. So there's lots of configuration options within it, but it's really nice. And if you see something that is causing, like all of a sudden you notice your computer's slowing down, you can glance down, and if you can see like this, CPU is at 92%, I know just at a glance, oh, okay, I've got a problem with some program that is using up, or one or more programs that's using up a lot of CPU. I can click anywhere on there and it will load up Task Manager for me. And then I can dig down to find what is the process that is actually causing me the problem. Really nice program. This is the configuration dialog box for it, so you can see how you can turn on or off any one of those 4, and then you can have them as bar charts, pie charts, or text, and you can change the colors, all kinds of options that you have available in that program. Very, very nice program, all for free. Piriform CCleaner is a program that is really good for getting rid of unnecessary files. It's its biggest usage, I think. It does say that it can remove errors in the registry. I say stay away from that. Registry cleaners don't fix problems. This is a quote from some very smart people, including folks at Microsoft. And I've got more URLs and so forth where you can dig down into that a little bit more detail. If you think registry cleaners fix problems, I highly encourage you to look into it a little bit more deeply. They're more likely to cause problems than fix problems. It can also uninstall programs that Windows can't. In Windows 10 and early versions of Windows 11, there were a lot of the built-in programs that you go to uninstall them, and the uninstall was grayed out. Nowadays, you can uninstall pretty much all of the ancillary programs like Calculator and Weather app and things like that. But if you do run into any program that is installed as part of Windows and the uninstall is grayed out, then CCleaner can probably do the uninstall of that. It can remove browser plugins. It has a duplicate file finder. We'll talk about duplicate files in a second. It can remove an awful lot of stuff. So be very careful about what you select on it to only select the things that you really want it to remove. Here are the ones that I recommend, that they're very safe things to have CCleaner just clean up for you all in one fell swoop. on Edge Chromium, on the Windows tab, you have Edge Chromium, which is the latest version of Edge on Windows. I have it clean up the internet cache and compact databases. Under the system, there's memory dumps. Every time either Windows or a program running on Windows crashes, it will write out memory to disk. And I've never had anybody request a dump file, and they're just cluttering up the disk if they're there. So I have it clean up those memory dump files. Checks file fragments, the same thing. It's basically just disk file space that has been allocated to a file, but no file in particular. So it's actually using it has no usable quantity at all. Optionally, you can also have it empty the recycle bin and temporary files if you don't use other tools to do that. Under the custom clean section and the application tabs, any browser you have listed I have installed on your computer, they'll be listed there, and I go into each one of them and I tell it to empty the internet cache and compact the databases. And then under the utilities section, NVIDIA, every time you install an update to the NVIDIA video drivers, they're about 700 megabyte files, and this will get rid of the install files. You can always download them if you need them again anyways from NVIDIA, so just get rid of those files off of your computer. If you're looking to clean up disk space, there's a number of programs that can help you find out where is the disk space being used on your computer. What is the biggest bang for the buck? What folders are using the most amount of space and so forth. Tree Size Free is a very good program. I've used that for many, many years. WinDirStat and WizTree are another couple of programs that are available free of charge that allow you to basically bring up charts of your disk, and you can drill down into various areas to find out where the disk space is being used, and then you decide what you want to do about it. Duplicate File Finder, if you have duplicate files that are maybe using space for no good reason. CCleaner does have built-in duplicate file finder in it, so you can always go to that. Search My Files from Nearsoft, that's another useful utility for finding duplicate files. And then Awesome Duplicate Photo Finder is kind of neat because not only can it find duplicate files, it can actually find similar image files. So it's awfully slow to run that, but if you do want to find that you've done a minor edit to some photo and you have the original and then you have a couple of edited versions on it, it might flag them as being all essentially the same photo, and then you can decide maybe there's extras around that you don't need anymore. If you're removing duplicates, be careful. Okay, so here we have an example of I have MSVCP 120.dll, and I have about 8 copies of it. Could I remove all of those but one? I have no idea. In all likelihood, it would cause problems on my computer if I was to remove some of them. Maybe not now. Maybe in 2 months, all of a sudden it would manifest itself. I don't know. My rule of thumb is if a duplicate file is there and I did not put the duplicate file there, I leave it alone. Okay, so only worry about duplicates if it's files that you've duplicated a folder of files or whatever you've done. It's a folder you created and it's a duplicate. Then you can decide if you want that duplicate around or if you want to actually bring it down to just a single known good copy of a file. Some possible extras that you might want to look at as well. And I'm just coming up to the close here, so not too much more. Clogged vents or fans or heat sinks. They can cause thermal throttling. So if the computer gets too hot, it will slow down the CPU so that it doesn't kill itself by overheating it too much. So clean those out. Use compressed air or something to blow it all that extra dust bunnies and so forth. You can reduce animations. They are taking a little bit of CPU activity. So if you don't like the animations on your computer or you want better performance and you don't care if the animations are making things prettier, Control Panel, Ease of Access Center, make the computer easier to use, make things on screen easier to see, and finally, check, turn off all unnecessary animations. There are other visual effects you can get at with Control Panel, System, Advanced System Settings, Advanced Tabs, Performance, Settings button, Visual Effects tab. They really make these things surfaced so that you can easily do these, right? Adjust for best performance. And then if you have a laptop computer, and what you can do is increase the performance on your computer at the expense of battery life by going into a power plan that actually says it's high performance or best performance or something like that. And it will make your computer run quicker, but of course, it's going to make the battery life a little bit shorter. Okay, just a couple of slides about the AutoPC user group, and then I'll open it up to questions. Our motto is users helping users. We have our regular Wednesday night meetings, monthly meetings on the second Wednesday of the month. So that's tomorrow night is our upcoming one, and it'll be 7:30 till 9 p.m. And on other Wednesdays, we have Q&A sessions, which is open to anybody. You can ask questions, offer advice, share information, whatever you want. We open that to members, non-members. It's a static Zoom link. So come to our website if you're interested in that at all. Join us anytime you want. It's always the same link for all of our meetings, and anybody is welcome to join as often as they want to join. If you want to join, it's $20 a year Canadian, but don't feel you have to, but feel free to join us. We do have 2 member-only services. There's a 24/7 discussion forum that's available, as well as one-on-one remote assistance. If you have problem that couldn't be solved through something like a Q&A session, and you just think, well, if somebody could just see my screen, they could probably understand it. We can set you up with a volunteer who thinks they might be able to help with your particular problem, and then they can get in touch with you, connect to your computer, and you can work through the problem together. So those 2 services are available only to members. Everything else, guests are welcome to take advantage of. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. So as I said, I pasted it into the chat. The URL for that, I'll paste it again because I know that under Zoom, if you join late, you don't see the stuff that comes up first. So I'm going to paste that in again. It's there in the chat. And so with that, I'd like to throw it out to any questions. So if the moderator wants to unmute people or allow people to unmute themselves. I know you can't force unmute, but you can mute everybody again with the option to unmute. And if there's any questions at all, I'd be happy to help out if I can.
I have a question about your where you can get the PDF.
Yep.
It says OPL/APCUG. Is that supposed to be an A or an O?
That URL is correct. So if you click that right now, it should bring it up in your browser.
Okay.
I saved it to my machine. I just clicked on it and saved it.
Yeah. Oh, the first OPCUG. Yeah, that's actually, it's the Ottawa PC User Group is our acronym rather than the Association of PC User Groups, which is the APCUG.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was a typo or if that was correct.
No, I wouldn't doubt it'd be a typo, except that I always copy and paste those right off my slides, which I've always verified is correct. So.
Okay. Thanks.
Nothing else I can help with. I either dazzled everybody or I lost everybody.
Lost.
Well, you have the deck. So and again, if you have any questions about one of the slides, you say, well, you showed this, but I really don't understand what you mean by this. By all means, send me an email, and I'll be happy to help you out and clarify things if anything needs clarification.
Just a comment on the slideshow that I downloaded. There's a whole bunch of things in there that I really need to address, and I'm sure others do too. But go back to that slideshow and scroll down till you find whatever you're looking for, how to scan your computer or whatever. And it's pretty simple, just following his steps there.
And if you notice anything that needs clarification, like I give this presentation frequently. So if you see anything that you say, oh, you really should specify it this way, or I downloaded the latest version of Windows and the menu option has changed to the following, please let me know, because if I can update my deck for the future, I'm more than happy to. I update my decks. They always get updated at least once a year because things change. And so if anybody can help me to make it better for others, that's all the better.
Yeah, I think we'll all find a lot to go through and actually apply some things from your presentation that will be really useful. So I really appreciate it. It's a lot of information for sure.
Yeah, I tend to be accused of, watering people with a fire hose, but I always like to give lots of information rather than shortchange anybody. So I know it can be overwhelming. It can seem like a lot. Don't try to boil the ocean. Take it bit by bit and just familiarize. One of the biggest things really with performance is really familiarize yourself with Task Manager and the information you can get from Task Manager. It's really a wealth of data that's there available for you. And it can help you to, really find where are the problem areas on your computer.
I'm hoping that our Dr. Fix-Its that are here have really paid attention too, because we'll probably be bringing our computers to them and saying, hey, Chris talked about so-and-so, can you do that?
I'm sure if they're used to fix it type things, they're probably well familiar with all of the tools that I've been talking about tonight.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thanks very much for inviting me.
Great presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for inviting me and have a good evening.
We have
Thank
one
you.
more. We have one more announcement. Joe, you want to talk about the workshop for tomorrow?
Oh,
Just
yeah.
what-
We're holding a iCloud workshop tomorrow from 1 to 4, and it was full, but we had one person that couldn't come. So if you're interested in the iCloud class, workshop 1 to 4 tomorrow, let me know. And it's first come, first serve.
Joe, are you talking about the one that has 4 people on the waiting list?
Yes,
Did you contact them?
yes, I
Okay,
did.
all right.
Okay, well, it looks like Chris has left us, right? Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
me too. Bye-bye.
All right. So, okay, Ben, anything more you want to say to the group?
Can't think of anything at this time. I do not yet have a topic for next month, but I should have it soon.
Okay,
I'm
sounds
open
good.
to any suggestions.
Well, that was good material. Just a
Yes, it
lot of
was.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
gonna,
another question.
I'm gonna send him an email because I need to have the hard copy.
I have another question. How do I find out if I have a solid state drive?
Okay, who can answer that?
Hey,
How old is it?
4 years.
Probably not.
That's what I'm thinking. Not for sure, but being that old, it could have it, but
It would
oh,
be on the
nice.
bill of sale, I would think.
Yeah,
I didn't think to look there.
and you would have known it. I mean, it would have been advertising. Oh, it's a solid state drive. I've got one that has both the hard drive and the solid state. And yeah,
If your computer boots up really fast, it's a solid state hard drive. If
Yes.
it doesn't, it's the old rolling one.
Well, if I have a new computer, which is just about a month old, would it be solid state?
Very likely.
Yeah,
Good possibility.
but you can still buy the hard drive. So
are
Yeah.
you running Windows 11 or 10?
11.
well,
Okay, open up File Explorer and go to the bottom of the navigation pane in the left-hand side and click on this PC. And
Okay.
it'll show you your drives, and if one of them has the letters SSD as part of the name, it's a solid state drive, and if it doesn't, it's a disk drive, hard drive.
Okay.
I was gonna say mine
answer.
doesn't specify. I've got a C drive and a D drive, and I know my D drive is solid state. but it doesn't say that I can
Okay.
see. So,
My kids bought me a new computer for Christmas, so I guess I got the good stuff. Thank you.
I didn't specify when I bought it, but I would have thought that they would have asked because I didn't know enough to say I wanted solid state.
Well, do what Elaine said, check your invoice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll look. I'll just go for a deep dive and see what I can find. That's one way to learn what your computer's all about. Just get in there and start clicking.
I use a little app called Specky, SPECCY. And it gives you an overview of the entire PC.
Mm.
I don't know how many other people may be using that. But I've used it for years. Still use it. SPECCY.
Yeah.
I think it's from Piriform.
Sue, do you know how to get to the task manager that he was showing us?
I did that, yes. I'm glad he
Okay,
said that
if you
because
get
I
the
didn't know
task-
that.
Yeah, but if you're in task manager and you click on performance. All right, and you look down and you look at your drives, it'll tell you, in mine, it tells me whether it's an SSD or not. Now, it still doesn't work that way. That's not a good way to do it.
Okay.
It's a hit or miss. That's not what you want. Wait a minute, no. CD. Yeah, okay. That might be a way to find it.
On mine, Mike, I went to the performances, and on the right, before the graph, there's a column
A
that
list.
says
Yeah,
SS disk 0, and it said mine says SSD.
yeah, right. So you want to look at in that, when you click on performance, before you get to the chart on the right, or the graph, there's a column. It's got everything you got plugged into your computer. Look for the disk that has the C:. That's the one you want. And I've got one drive that is an SSD, and I've got another drive in my computer that's just a regular hard drive. And it's not a solid state, but that's where I put all the data. So,
But when I go to task manager, I'm not seeing performance.
How about on the left side, there should be a sidebar.
There's one that says name, and all it has is task manager, and then a lot of background processes. But I'm not seeing anything that says performance.
You under
In the
where at
left
the
hand?
top of your screen says Task Manager. See the 3 bars underneath it?
No,
the window you have open at the top line, does it say task manager?
yes,
Okay, then right immediately under the word task manager, what do you see?
oh, processes.
What's
To the left of
underneath
that.
processes?
I was looking at task manager farther down.
Right. You want to click on performance underneath processes.
No,
And then where did you see the SSD?
Go over a little bit to the right.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
got disk, or whatever. And you want the one that says C:.
yeah, I'm
And
just,
underneath that, if it has SSD, then that means you got a solid state drive as your main drive.
okay. But when I click on that word that says processes, it doesn't do anything.
Go down to performance.
Performance.
It doesn't say performance anywhere.
Okay, under the word task manager, up at the top. You with me?
Yeah.
Underneath there, you see 3 bars.
Oh, okay, yes.
Click on that.
Ah, now I got it. Thank
Okay,
you.
And what do you got? Click on performance.
click on performance,
Okay,
go over to the right a little bit. And find where it says disk.
CPU, memory, and disk.
And you-
okay,
You want the disk that has the C colon.
I got that.
What does
What
it
does it say
say?
in it?
Right underneath that. Do you see an
SSD.
SSD?
It says SSD.
You got a solid state drive.
You're saved.
Yay.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm slow, but I'll get there. Part of it is because I'm nearsighted and it's a small screen.
I know
At
what you
least
mean.
that's my excuse. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Bye-bye.
Good
Bye.
night.
See you next
Hi,
time.
everybody.
Yep.
Next time.